YouTube world, this is Nicholas Mondes here, and today's video we are going to be doing a MCU tier list with the release of Marvel Zombies now out and Wonder Man basically coming out next year. It is confirmed that we now have had 8 projects in the MCU of 2025, so we're going to be going ahead and ranking all 8 of them on a tier list. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first up we have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the new animated series on Disney+. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put this in the C tier. Nothing particularly bad about this show for me. It's just, I like the way they built this world. I like the characters that we got. I like the animation style in here. The problem is I feel like as though it got really exciting, and then once we get the Spider-Man arc, and he finally gets the comic accurate suit, it just kind of feels like all that big stuff was kind of disappointing, and it's like, it kind of felt similar to what we've seen before, so I did like it, but it wasn't my cup of tea. So now we have Captain America Brave New World, and I'm actually going to go ahead and put this in the D tier. This is not a absolute terrible movie, but of the films and projects that came out this year, this is easily my least favorite thing that has come out. And it's so shocking because I tend to love the Captain America movies. And this one just did not work. It felt more like it was trying to be a Hulk movie with bringing Ross and Red Hulk, rather than being Captain America movie and having all these weird plot lines, taking out that team of villains, the Serpent Society. It just, I did like Sam as new Captain America, and I did like the new Falcon, but other than that, this movie did not really work for me. So now we have Daredevil Born Again. The Devil is back on Disney Plus, back from She-Hulk and No Way Home. I thought this show was actually pretty incredible. Granted, does it live up to the original show from Netflix? Not exactly. And does the Muse and Punisher storylines work as much? Not really. But for what they were able to try to do, especially in the last few episodes, and the tone, and trying to have Daredevil come back and be this reborn of everything, it was really cool. The action could be a little bit better, but at the same time, it's kind of grown on me. So overall, this show is pretty great. I'm going to put this one in the B category, only because it's not my favorite, but it is definitely great, so gotta put it in the B category, but it is still a great project. Alright, so now we are talking about Thunderbolts, a film that I was both excited, but also very hesitant on, because I didn't like the fact that our team of Thunderbolts are basically a bunch of heroes with sort of the same abilities, and most are super soldiers, and a couple are Black Widows and stuff like that. But I thought they actually made it work, to where once again, you get the concept, the premise, but with the characters interacting and stuff, so you get like a mini Avengers team-up movie, but it's so much more than that, to where it's actually about something, about these characters, mental health, and why exactly are these characters the way they are. So it's kind of like a Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like Suicide Squad, but without the soundtrack. It's mostly score. It also feels really good as a movie, like with the soundtrack and everything, so it works really well. I'm putting this in the A tier. This is like one of my favorite movies in the MCU, but also one of my favorite movies of this year, just period. So I love Thunderbolts. So now I get Ironheart, which was kind of the most hated show this year of all the MCU, because it was kind of put on the shelf and they didn't really like what they did with it. I, however, was one of the people that actually loved Ironheart. I'm actually going to put this one in the A tier, below Thunderbolts, but it's still up there. This was a story that I was not expecting from a character like Ironheart, but also just, I think with the Ryan Coogler sauce on it, it gave it a lot of good storytelling, and taking it place in Chicago. Also, Riri Williams, I'm not going to lie, she's low-key kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie. She's a baddie, and yet she's doing all this dumb stuff to get money. And also, Anthony Ramos and the way that story played out, that was really good. And just kind of figuring out this story of loss and all that stuff. It really found layers to her character, but did a different story to it. So I found it to be a very interesting kind of premise for a show. So, I don't know if we'll get a season 2, but I am interested. So, I actually did love this show. Fantastic Four First Steps. This was a movie that I kind of questioned at first going into it, because I'm like, how do you make a great MCU film with where the Fantastic Four are in the MCU? Well, first off, you have to take place in a different universe in the 1960s in a retro-futuristic New York to make New York interesting. And that's actually one of the interesting things, is that the fact that we had our characters talking in our tower, and yet I actually wanted to go out and explore New York. Like, that's how interesting New York was made in this show. I mean, in this movie. But I also just loved our 4 characters, and honestly, it's so hard to pick a favorite because all of them did so well. And just this world, these characters, the story, and the danger of everything, you felt it. And I just loved it. I'm putting this one in the A tier. This is easily the best the best MCU project we got this year. I loved Fantastic Four. So now we're going to talk about Eyes of Wakanda, the animated series that basically is the anthology series, not anthology series, but a backstory to show you the war dogs throughout time and that went to different places from Wakanda. I thought this was a very unique series that had a unique animation style, really cool action, and characters that you kind of cared about as the stories went along, and just cool exploration of the history of the MCU and taking us to different points of time in the MCU where it's not going in the 90s and it's certainly not going in the 40s or an alternate version of the 60s. It's taking us like way before then to like ancient Rome and like China and stuff like that, or even the future with a future Black Panther played by Nikanani Rose. All that stuff was really cool. I'm putting this one in the B category. I think it's very good. Though there are things that I think are better than it, but it is still a very good MCU project. And finally, we have Marvel Zombies, which honestly, this is an easy B tier show. I do love this show. I think the way it handles the gore in here and all the goriness and actually living up to the TVMA rating. I love the way it handles all the characters and the way it knows the MCU. Even if you're not a big fan of the last few films and shows of the last few years, it's able to make those shows memorable because they actually did mean something, because they actually did build a story out of it. Even though those movies and shows were flawed, they still had something that could do good for that. And the way they use the MCU, even of doing an alternate Endgame timeline and alternate Infinity War timeline, all that stuff was really cool. And honestly, even though this show may be flawed, I can still look back at it and be like, yeah, this was a great show, and I cannot wait for season 2. So for me, this is easily another great project of Phase 6, but also a great project of 2025. I loved Marvel Zombies, and that is my tier list for MCU 2025.